Hello everyone, hope you all are well. I know I certainly am. We're moving out of COVID lockdowns. We're free now, just we still have to wear masks when we go into establishments, but outdoors is free, but I still will remain cautious. So in today's video I will be talking about single shot, burst, bracketing and panorama. There's timer as well. Timer is a no-brainer. It basically sets a time, a delayed time. When you hit it, you can go and queue up and pose and wait for the shot to go. That's really good if you are part of the group, like if you're taking a family photo and you want to be in it without having the controller with you, or whatever it is. It will allow you to be in the shot, and that is, I think, one of the times which you would use the timer. For photos, two of the main things that I want you to consider about taking photos is one, the composition, and two, the exposure. For composition, they've made it easy and they've allowed you to enable the grid, and the grid has separate intersecting points, and these points are what I would like to highlight to you to place your subject on it. If there's something interesting in a scene, instead of just picking one big picture, pick something that's interesting, something that you want to catch the viewer's eye, and place them on an intersecting point, like I've done here. That is the simplest way I can, or the easiest tip I can give you for composition, and then you can improve that on your own as you go along. You can do a bit more research on the rule of thirds or the Fibonacci spiral. All of those things are a bit more advanced in composition and more artistic, but it does help you and help you create more attractive images with features in the images that you want viewers to look at. With the exposure, there's the Pro mode, which is manual mode, and they only allow you to change the ISO and shutter speed. So the ISO and shutter speed, also with the aperture, this forms what we call the exposure triangle. So the exposure triangle has ISO, shutter speed and aperture. These three items together can be adjusted to create complete exposure, and by complete exposure I mean when the metering is at 0. It's not overexposed or it's not underexposed, it's just at 0. And in Pro mode, the ISO, I would advise that you try to keep your ISO as low as possible, and your shutter speed you can change according to how much light. If it's a bright day, you would need to bump up the shutter speed really high, and as it gets darker, you will reduce the shutter speed to compensate for that loss of light. The first mode we will talk about is single shot. Single shot is very easy. It basically is just a single shot. There is no extra shots. You frame your target, frame your subject, frame your landscape, and take the shot, and it saves the file. Moving on to burst mode. What is burst mode? Burst mode is, how do I explain this? The camera is doing that, and when you will use this is when you have fast moving subjects or something that is happening really quickly that you cannot miss. You put in burst mode and then you just hit press when it's happening, and it'll capture, I think, 14 photos in 1 second. You will have at least 1 or 2 photos, or maybe a lot more photos, of a very good composition, and of course with the moving subject. Bracketing is basically HDR. It takes multiple exposures, multiple pictures with different exposures, and then combines it together to make your HDR. You can create your own HDR and do an even better job than what the drone programming does by saving the files separately, and you can choose between 3, 5 or 7 photos to have different exposures, and then you can blend them in later on in Lightroom or Photoshop, like I'm going to show you now. Wrapping things up in this video, we'll be taking a look at Panorama. The first one is the vertical panorama, which is a portrait aspect ratio, and it takes a wide shot in a portrait format. The next one we'll look at is the horizontal, which is my favorite on any drone that has the ability to take panorama. The reason for this is I don't need to fly high to give the viewer the perception of the height. Because of the very wide field of view, it almost seems like I'm higher than I'm actually flying, and I'm further away from the scene that I'm actually photographing. And for this I like it because I can always crop into it after the fact. If you've made it this far into the video, I wanted to share something with you, just to say thank you. You can adjust your picture style to give your colors a bit more vibrance, so you don't need to edit the pictures after you've taken them. Go into your settings and select the style and then adjustment, and then adjust your saturation to +2, contrast to +1, and sharpness to -1, because I find it that it comes out really sharp on its own, so I want to tone that down a bit. Lastly, the 360 panorama. The 360 panorama takes 42 photos, and then you can save it to your gallery and create a sphere, which is a 360 view, little planet, a tunnel, or you can customize it. And this is what it looks like when it's not in any of those modes. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down, and please tell me why, so I can improve. Until next time, fly safe and God bless.